Alright, I'll be talking about Little Red Cap, written by Caroline Duffy, published in her poetry collection, The World's Wife, from 1999. Right, first of all about Little Red Cap and who she was. Well, like the other poems in this collection, the poem takes its roots from another story, in this case from the fairy tale Little Red Riding Hood. In the original story, a younger girl is tricked by a wolf and eaten while on her way to visit her grandmother, and the end of the story and at the end of the story she's saved by a woodcutter who cuts her out of the wolf's belly. The original story has changed considerably in its history and has been subject to numerous modern adaptations and readings, one of them being the version by Caroline Duffy. Alright, I'm going to take you through the six stanzas each by one. Right, the very first sentence, at childhood's end, is emphasized. Childhood is emphasized, as she annotates it as a physical place. The houses pettered out here are kind of as childhood ends and her life loses structure as a child has bedtime and nap time and dinner time and whatever they have. Um, we have the silent railway line, which is a sense of the journey, which reflects or foreshadows the journey that she's about to embark. And the hermit's caravan is kind of it represents a house in the middle of nowhere, someone living by themselves, which means uh, that little red cap is getting further and further away from her childhood. And then she comes out to the edge to the edge of the woods, and this is here where she first meets the wolf. Stanza 2. Okay, so it starts out with a he. He's a nameless character, suggesting that he's an allegorical figure, one that can represent many, which I'll come back to later. Reading his verse out loud, which I've highlighted here, shows that he's intellectual and educated, which contrasts the original character, which is schemy and not that smart. Then he drinks red wine, which symbolizes his sexual immaturity and also shows that he's kind of sophisticated and experienced, you could say, and older and wiser. What big eyes and ears and teeth he has. Reminds the reader of the Grimm's fairy tale of the Little Red Riding Hood, which the story is based of. He uses imagery to get the reader to to see the original story for them. Here she makes sure that he spotted her, which shows that the girl is in power and she's in control. And she makes sure that he spots her, which is a contrast to the original story. She's 16 in her late teenage years, and then the wolf buys her a drink, her first. Here the short sentence reflects how quick it happens, and just everything happens so quickly, and it's kind of her loss of her innocence that she usually had in her childhood. In the first line here, you might ask why. Here's why. Poetry. Duffy uses a type of rhetorical question called a hypophora, which is when the author asks a question and immediately answers it. And this gives time to the audience to think of an answer, but the author answering it herself makes her seem confident and in control. While you might ask why isn't directly a question, it makes the audience ask themselves why. Here we get into this deep to this dark, tangled, thorny place, where Duffy uses the three pre-modifying verbs, which reflects the extent of the danger that she is about to experience. And it also seems like a very frightening place for a young woman, which again contrasts the traditional tale, as she's staying in the woods and not, as here she's staying in the woods and not going to the safety of her grandmother's house. Um, Here her stockings rips to shreds, which may which may symbolize how her innocence is being ripped away from her, and then she loses both shoes, kind of loses her ability to walk by herself. Um, the breath of the wolf in my ear was the love poem. This is kind of the seductive devil on the shoulder, him luring her away. And then she later on states, "What little girl doesn't really love a wolf?" Um, she, in her naivety, feels that she would enjoy the experience because that is what she's been told she should enjoy. She's trying to convince herself that she wants the relationship when she's truly not fully enjoying it. And then we have the white dove here at the end, which represents peace and purity, which is kind of a contrast to everything else here in the poem. Stanza 5. Um, Straight from my hands into his hope mouth. So this is the dove flying into his mouth, one bite dead. Um, this just reflects his strength and that he's willing to crush anything within a fraction of a second. Uh, this is interesting. The whole wall was crimson gold aglow with books. These colors are associated with rich and more desirable things in life, which reflects the importance of this to Red, to the Little Red Cap. And by using the first-person narrative voice of Little Red Cap, it could be argued that Duffy is voicing her own opinion that in feelings towards literature through Red's narrative voice. Um, the last the last line here through the through the fast pace of the listing, Duffy could be reflecting the excitement of Little Red Cap, and this could be argued to the link of blood as it pumps faster through her body. By bringing her central to the poem in this way, Duffy is presenting that not only men can enjoy these things in life and the aesthetic nature of music and blood, um, gives gives a sense of escapism, thus suggesting that this character is escaping from the typical female construct. And this would be seen through the positive connotations of music, as this is something that could be used to escape everyday life, or somewhat. In stanza 6 here, she reflects upon her journey from her childhood, but then I was young, and it took 10 years, and then she goes through the forest. And then we have the graying wolf, which just shows that um, when he's getting old, shows that time is passing by and there's not really anything you can do about it. Uh, then we have the wolf howling, the same emphasis on the same old song at the moon, which is a repetitive motion, um, which could reflect the repetitive nature of the relationship, which was once dangerous and passionate, and now it's just repetitive and predictable and boring. And also this year in year out, season after season, same rhyme, same season. Also a lot of alliteration going on here. And then she goes on, I took an axe without any punctuation after here, so the reader's kind of forced to go on, because, ooh, you want to know what she does with the axe? Uh, oh, to a willow to see how it wept. Yeah, nothing exciting yet. But there we go. I take an axe to the wolf as he slept, one chop, which shows who shows her determination to kill him. Just one chop. There's no consideration or anything. She just she's very decisive in her action, and she definitely wants to kill him. Where do you have them? And saw the glistening virgin white of my grandmother's bones. Um, Here Duffy uses imagery of her grandmother's bones to show how past generations of oppressed females consumed the greed of patriarchal society. Imagery. I'm gonna talk about that later. How Duffy uses it. Uh, and then she fills his belly with stones, as in the original. And then she stitches him up, which is colloquial language. Stitch up can also mean to trick or to make someone a victim. So the literal meaning, she's stitching him up with a wound, or she's stitching up the wound she's made, and then the figurative meaning that she fooled him, which she kind of did. And then she she sings and jumps out of the forest all innocent. She has this innocent facade, as if nothing really has happened. All right, so so in this version, Duffy modifies the roles of the characters, so the Little Red Cap was seen as the supreme role. Duffy was able to create a feminist edge in her poem by altering the roles of the characters. The wolf is no longer portrayed as a villain, but rather as a valuable and warm-hearted character. Little Red Cap is transformed from a foolish young girl to a more independent and clever young adult. And through these changes, Little Red Cap became the leader, while the wolf was seen as guidance for her through her journey. So, in this poem, Duffy was able to create a dominant female character, and so create a storyline focused on the success of the character rather than her flaws. Quick about the structure, we have 6 stanzas, somewhat equal length, only stanza 5 having an additional verse. Duffy uses lots of rushed enjambment and alliteration to create a forward flow, which could represent her forward journey from a child to an independent woman. Once again, Duffy uses a slightly controversial tone in the poem to once again convey the message of empowering women. Doing this, she uses many stylistic devices which have a great meaning to the poem. As already mentioned in Jumpman, which rushes Little Red Cap through her childhood. And then Carolyn Duffy takes imagery to the next level. First of all, the title of the poem grabs your attention and reminds you of Little Red Riding Hood. And then this is very clever, as it sets the reader's mind to thinking about the story, which means the reader can connect all of the similarities of the poem to the children's story. For example, what big eyes he had and what teeth. In general, we just have we have Carol and Duffy using imagery to describe these different places at childhood's end and in this thorny forest, which were this dark, tangled, thorny place, which makes us imagine exactly what the wolf's lair must be like. It's this nasty place. Again, as I mentioned earlier, she uses color in this gold, crimson gold, aglow with books. Just a lot of imagery to emphasize the tone and the meaning of the poem. All right. So this is a very typical Carol Ann Duffy poem, and especially for the world's wife, her swapping the male and the female character, empowering the woman. The the poem might be a bit autobiographical, as the wolf may represent the poet Adrian Hendry, with whom Carol and Duffy had a long-term relationship when she was only 16 years old, which is the age of Little Red Cap in this story, and he was 39, which is a lot older. But yes, a very typical Carol and Duffy story, using a more modern story as opposed to her other Greek mythologies.